Now call to order the May 18th, 2017 meeting of the City of Nashua Planning Board. Mr. Secretary, can we have the roll call, please?
Yes, Mayor Donches.
Present.
Mike Peterson.
Present.
Adam Varley.
Here.
Scott Leclerc. Ed Weber. Here. Sean McGinnis. Thomas Lopez. Steve Ducrane.
Present.
Dan Kelly.
Present.
David Robbins.
Here.
Jerry Rapucci.
Here.
Chanel Mystery. Megan Geekons.
Thank you. And all regular members this evening, so participating and voting. Next up, we have approval of the minutes from the May 4th, 2017 meeting. Are there any questions or comments on the minutes before we take a motion?
One comment. Page 6. 2/3 of the way down. Mr. Dugan asked what kind of access for equipment is being, instead of prepared, it should be provided.
Okay. Anything else? Someone like to make a motion then to accept the minutes?
I wasn't here for that meeting, so
I make a motion.
Mr. Weber? Made a motion to accept the minutes.
Accept the minutes.
Is there a second?
With the correction.
I second.
Second by Mr. Peterson. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
I abstain.
3 abstentions.
Excuse me, three abstentions?
Yeah, so Mr. Robbins, Mr. Rapucci, and Mr. Kelly.
Okay, thanks.
Good evening, Roger.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the Planning Board. If you turn to your packet, I'll go through that quickly. You have an amended agenda tonight. Item number 4 has been postponed to the June 15th meeting at Linear Retail, in case anyone is here for that item. You have some communication on the case tonight. It was just put in your packet tonight on St. Joe's. This is fire department's comments. It doesn't say that on the sheet, but that pertains to both case number 2 and 3, St. Joe's Hospital. You also have a communication dated May 12th from Jim Petropoulos, not from Jim Petropoulos, to Jim Petropoulos from Gene Walker, with no further comments. And lastly, you have communication continued to be in your packet for the next meeting on the old case number 4, Linear, and that's requesting postponement, excuse me. And then lastly, you have a preliminary agenda to determine regional impact. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Report of committee liaison. Mr. Kelly, Mr. Weber, anything to report? Nope. Weber?
The Historical District Commission had an applicant from 48 Main Street. They're requesting a special awning for their restaurant. It was approved with conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Weber. Okay. Now read the procedure for this evening's meeting. After the legal notice of each conditional special use permit, site plan, or subdivision plan is read by the chair, the board will determine if the application is complete and ready for the board to take jurisdiction. The public hearing will begin, at which time the applicant or representative will be given time to present an overview and description of their project. They shall speak to whether or not they agree with the recommended staff stipulations. The board will then have an opportunity to ask relevant follow-up questions of the applicant or staff. The chair will then ask for testimony from the audience. First, anyone wishing to speak in opposition or concern to the plan may speak. Please come forward to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. This will be the time to express your concerns or ask questions you may have regarding the plan. Next, testimony will come from anyone wishing to speak in favor of the plan. The applicant will then be given a rebuttal period, at which time they shall respond to any concerns raised by prior public testimony. One public member will be allowed to respond to only those items brought forth during the applicant's rebuttal period. After this has been completed, the public hearing will end and the board will resume the public meeting, at which time the board will deliberate and vote on the application before us. We ask that both sides keep the remarks to the subject at hand and do not repeat what has already been said. We want to be fair to everyone and make the best possible decision based on the testimony presented and considering all applicable approval criteria established in the National Revised Ordinances. Thank you for your interest and courteous attention. I ask you please turn off your cell phones at this time. Old business conditional special use permits, none. Old business subdivision plans, none. Old business site plans, case number 1, that has been tabled until the June 1st, 2017 meeting. New business conditional special use permits. Case number 2, St. Joseph Hospital owner, application and acceptance of proposed conditional use permit to construct a 35,275 square foot, 3-story medical office building and associated site improvements. Property is located at 172 Kinsley Street, sheet 91, lot 4, zoned urban residence and urban residence. This is located in Ward 6. And we will hear this case together with new business site plans, case number 3, St. Joseph Hospital owner, application and acceptance of proposed amendment to NR 1959 to demolish 2 buildings and construct a 35,275 square foot, 3-story medical office building and associated site improvements. And again, property is located at 172 Kinsley Street, sheet 9, lot 4, urban residence, and located in Ward 6. As to new business case number 2, can I have a motion this application is complete and ready for the board to accept jurisdiction?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Robbins, is there a second?
Seconded.
Second by Mr. Rapucci. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And as to case number 3, can I have a motion that application is complete and ready for the board to accept jurisdiction?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Robbins, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Rapucci. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Evening, Jim.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Jim Petropoulos. I'm a civil engineer with Keener Swanson, doing business at 3 Congress Street in Nashville, New Hampshire. Tonight, we represent cases 2 and 3, and proud to say I'm representing St. Joseph Hospital this evening. Before I get started, I'd like to introduce Bob Demers. Bob is the Director of Operations at St. Joseph's. Our project attorney, James Reed, is here with us from Stone River Architect. And of course, attorney Brad Westgate, we know, our counsel for St. Joseph's. In case any questions come up that I can't answer, I'll look to help me out.
Maybe we can just give him one of these.
There you go. Something's off.
You heard Jerry's microphone.
Yeah, that's because, you want to just take one of these and,
Well, the gentleman said he's going to bring me another mic.
Wait just a
I
minute.
don't think it's speaker.
You gonna try this one? Make it start? You sure? I don't know how long he's gonna be. Did he say? Yeah, it works. It's portable.
Okay.
As long as you can, it doesn't bother you.
I'm hoping that's okay for him.
Here he
Right
is.
behind you.
he's bringing you one anyway.
Oh, you got it. Am I okay here speaking like this, or?
Can we get it?
I don't have anything. You may have to hold it a little.
Okay. I will do my best with this juggling. I'm not sure if I start over again, but again, for the record, Jim Petropoulos, and I introduced my team. Again, tonight, seeking 2 actions by this board
The first is a conditional use permit for a medical office building in an RB zone, and then the second is an approval for a site plan for the redevelopment of a portion of the St. Joseph Hospital site. What I'm going to try to do, Mr. Chairman, is introduce the project, try to provide information regarding the various elements to the site plan, and then I'll probably return and address the 9 criteria for a conditional use permit. And of course, I'll end up with answering any questions you might have or any questions the public might have. The St. Joe's Hospital property, really located in central Nashua, is a 19.7 acre site. It is a split zone property, but the majority of the site is RB. There's only a small portion of the western part of the site that's zoned RA. As you can tell with the maps on the left, the subject site is abutted by Kinsley Street to the north, Woodward Ave, Early Street, and single-family residences to the east, Lake Street and Lewis Street to the south, and then single-family homes predominantly to the west. Currently, the St. Joseph Hospital site, as is shown on this plan here, contains a number of different buildings and elements to it. Multi-level hospital building. There are 2 medical office buildings along Kinsley Street upon the property. An education building that fronts over on Woodward Ave. A boiler plant building. And then several buildings in the south part of the site. Formerly rectory, the former convent, and the former St. Joseph's Church. St. Joseph Church moved off-site to West Hollis Street back around the year 2000, I believe. And since then, those buildings have been used in a varying number of ways, from offices to storage to education. As usual, Scott and the staff did a nice job with the staff report kind of painting the history of the St. Joe's Hospital. I don't know if you had a chance to take a look at that. Property also includes 2 structured parking garages, one located up in the northeast corner of the site, and the other basically in the center of the site, that was built around year 2004. Right now, the parcel has access from Kinsley Street, Woodward, Lake, and Lewis Streets. There are about 1,012 parking spaces upon the site. And the buildings are about 616,000 square feet. Now, what's being proposed tonight is a new medical office building in order for St. Joe's to meet the growing demand of the medical services to Greater Nashua. It's being proposed to redevelop the southeast corner of this property by raising 2 structures and constructing a new medical office building with accompanying site improvements. And I'd like to walk through some of those site improvements. As there are no changes to the Kinsley Street side of the site, there are no changes along the westerly property line, and no changes over by Woodward Ave. In order to make room for the new office building, as I just mentioned, 2 buildings, the former convent and the former St. Joe's Church, will be demolished. And once the buildings are down, a new medical office building will be constructed. I think the architect's done a wonderful job in siting this building. I'd like to describe to you why I feel that way. He's placed it further to the north. Currently right here is where the St. Joseph Church used to be, right along Lewis and Lake Street. And the reason the architect did that is to make adjustments and work with the land topography of this part of the site. There's about a 30-foot grade change between Lake Street and Lewis, and then the upper levels of St. Joe Hospital. If you've ever been through the main entrance of St. Joe's, you know you climb the hill and you enter into the hospital. So there's a grade change there. And by siting the building up into the hill, in preparing a 3-level or a 3-story building, we're able to have a lower level, which will be accessed by this new parking lot. The lower level will be for women's health. The second floor, or the mid-level, can be accessed directly from the structured parking garage, and that will be for pediatrics. And then the upper level will be internal medicine that can be accessed from the upper parking lot. Now, all 3 levels can be accessed through the elevators or stairs in the building, as well as a nice sidewalk that'll connect this parking lot in between these structures up to the upper parking lot. In total, the new building, as described, will be 35,275 square feet. Other improvements in that southeast corner of the site, we're going to maintain our main curb cut to Lake Street. But the curb cut over by Lewis will be eliminated. And right now, if you were to go to the site, you'd see all that pavement just butts up against the back of the sidewalk on Lake and Lewis. And we are pulling the site development back away from that edge of the sidewalk. The new access will service a 150-space parking lot here that's kind of split up with a large green area right in the center. So we've got parking, 2 pods of parking here, and then a new access into the lower level of the structured parking garage. About 150 spaces in that new lower level parking lot. With regard to stormwater, a significant improvement over the current condition. The current condition, it really is no drainage. There's a small detention basin, an unsightly basin that basically picks up this parking garage from 2004. We'll be eliminating that and preparing a subsurface recharge basin for the site. Our soil testing shows deep deposits of sand with no evidence of any groundwater. And so we're able to take and treat the new stormwater proposed by this development, capture it with curbing and catch basins, and pipe it into that recharge basin adequately to store the entire 10-year storm event, and then significant reductions to the city system for larger storms. So it's a very favorable stormwater solution we're proposing. With regard to traffic, a report was submitted as part of our application. It looked at the anticipated trips from the medical office building, both during the AM and PM peaks, and also total trips during the 24-hour period. And as the board knows, if you don't meet certain thresholds of the traffic analysis, further study is not needed, and therefore a complete study was not needed for the project. Keep in mind, we're demolishing about 42,000 square feet of existing building space here and putting up 35,275. So there's an offsetting element with regard to traffic. Lighting and landscaping, new lighting is proposed for the parking lot, LED cutoff fixtures. The landscaping has really been designed to buffer along Lewis and Lake Street, as well as the easterly property line, and then of course the entrances to the lower level of the medical office building. Brought with me tonight the architectural elevation, very impressive combination of cement board and metal panel and fixed glass for the exterior of this building. It will be a flat roof, again 3 stories. Natural colors really to complement what's out there already at St. Joe's. Mr. Chairman, I have applied for 3 waivers from site plan regulations. In order to save time, I'll quickly paraphrase the letter that I submitted on May 8th for these 3 formal waivers. The first is a requirement of a boundary survey of the entire property. This property was surveyed in 2004. It did not make any sense to resurvey the boundary. Our firm went out and verified right-of-way locations and boundary lines in the area of work, but we did not need to survey the entire parcel. And all that information has been represented on our drawings. There's a requirement under the architectural section 190-172 for a waiver of the requirement for pitched roofs on a building. As you know, your National Land Use Code requires pitched roof on every non-residential structure. Frankly, we've asked for a waiver because the flat roof matches the other buildings on campus, and it is typical of a medical office building. And then, of course, lastly, with a pitched roof on this 3-story would only make the structure taller. The last waiver we've requested had to do with the requirement within interior parking lots of when there's more than 10 spaces, you need a landscape island. And so we have 2 bays here that are 13 spaces, and one here, I think 2 at 11 and 1 at 13, which slightly exceed the 10-space rule. To institute or implement a island in the middle didn't make a lot of sense for controlling traffic or snowplow maintenance. And we think the large green area that separates these two parking pods amply offsets the use of the island. Mr. Chairman, case 2 actually is a conditional use case, and as you know, it requires that we address 9 points. We've addressed that in a letter to you dated on May 3, 2017. If you'd like, I can quickly go through those 9 points.
Yeah, I mean, you can very summary.
Paraphrase
fashion,
them?
that'd be
Okay, fine. So point 1 asks if it's in the table of use matrix, and of course, number 247 says a conditional use for an MOB is needed in an RB zone. Criteria number 2 says if completed, the project will comply with other standards of the site plan regulations. And of course, our testimony is that there's no other dimensional standards, there's no variances, there's no other criteria that we do not comply with. Criteria number 3 is that the building structure will not materially endanger the public health or safety. There is no processes or functions produced in a medical office building that will create public safety. Obviously, being what it is, a medical office building, we could argue that it's for the greater good of the public. Point 4 asks that the building will not substantially devalue abutting properties. This development project modernizes a portion of this campus. Those buildings have been there since the 50s, I believe, and we are providing more modern architecture, more modern construction, and an enhancement. We're pulling buildings away from some of the frontages of the streets. We're adding landscaping and lighting. And it's our testimony that we believe that we will not be devaluing abutting properties. Point 5, the building and structure is compatible with the neighborhood. Certainly it's compatible with the remaining hospital. Obviously, when you look at our maps, we're surrounded by neighbors. But we think that this project does increase open space in the southeast corner of the site. It does kind of pull pavement away. Currently, there's pavement right about within 10 feet of this side property line, and that's being pulled back between, I think, 25 and 30 feet away from the property line. Point number 7, will not have a substantial adverse impact on the environmental resources. There's no wetlands being impacted here. And as I mentioned before, I think we've got an improved stormwater system than currently exists. Criteria number 8, there'll be no public expenditures being needed for the development of this project. And then criteria 9 has to do with the downtown zoning district, which we are not a part of, so it's really not applicable. So, in summary, Mr. Chairman, I've tried to be informative, try to tell you the story about the project, give you the facts about the project. We feel it's being designed in a reasonable manner and in compliance with the land use code. Again, we're about 7,000 square feet less than what exists out there, and we have slightly less number of parking spaces. The conditions of approval as identified in the staff report are acceptable to us. And with that, I'd glad to answer any questions you might have.
I'm assuming, are these representative of the materials? Is that why they're here? Or these are for the building?
I haven't seen those, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, those came in as samples of,
May I approach?
Sure.
So during the review process, they were asking about the skin of the building. It's a cementitious panel that'll be used, almost like a concrete panel. And these are just samples of the thickness and the type of panel that will be used. And that's really represented in the elevation in that, I guess, that beigeish or tannish color here. And then, of course, fixed glass on the inside of the building here. So yes, these were samples that were submitted to staff.
Okay, thank you. I just figured I'd confirm that and then pass them around if anyone wants to look at them. Questions for Mr. Petropoulos? Ed? Mr. Weber?
Yeah. Jim, there is some outside lighting on the poles and are they gonna remain, or are you changing even the ones on the pole to be all downlighting LED?
Yes, everything in that southeast corner of the site's coming down, coming off the buildings, coming off utility poles. There'll all be new poles, yes.
Okay. Hours of operation?
Yeah, we put on the plan 8 to 8. Saturday hours, not likely going to be Saturday afternoon hours, but during normal business day, Monday through Friday, generally 8 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Rapucci?
Yeah, it's probably in here somewhere, but not easy for me to find. It's the dimensions of the square footage that's being built is in here, 35,000, whatever it is. The buildings that are presently there, if they were fully functional, what would their usable space be?
About 42,000 square feet. And actually, if I may, Mr. Rapucci, we had a table on the first sheet of the site plan set right here.
Okay, yep.
That gives kind of the list of the existing uses and sizes. And it totals up the square footage pre-development and then compares it to post-development.
Okay, so-
The church the church, I believe, is 3 elevations, and then the convent is 2 stories. And so when you total up with the square footage of those structures, it totals around 42,000 square feet.
Okay, so not only will the actual usable square footage of structure be less when this is done, but the impervious ground area will also be reduced by a lot, right?
Yeah, not a lot. It is less. You know, you can see here, we've got greater green areas, certainly around Lewis and Lake Street, and certainly in the main body of the parking lot. We have a slightly larger number of parking spaces in that southwest corner, but it is not an increase, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Robbins?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Petropoulos, looking at that building and parking information spec that you were just talking about, going down to the number of spaces, it's hard for me to see with these old eyes what the 3 figures are under number of spaces. In other words, required parking is, and I can't make out that figure.
1523,
Okay. And existing parking is,
1012,
and proposed parking is,
1007. We have 5 less parking spaces than
Okay.
it's out there.
so this is going to reduce the parking.
Yeah.
Marginally.
Yeah, a little bit of less square footage as well, sure.
Okay.
Yep.
Is
I
that,
anticipated a question, sir, about parking, and I went out there Tuesday morning to drive around the campus. I don't know if any of the board members have had a chance to do so. Clearly, everybody wants to get into that back lot. They come up from Kinsley, and they want to get back there because that's the entrance to the hospital. And so that parking lot is very full and very active.
Okay.
The upper level of the garage is active, but this lower to mid-level was about 50% occupied. And then this lower parking lot was maybe a third occupied there. So I left there thinking during a pretty busy time, mid-morning on a Tuesday, that there weren't cars parked on Lake Street, there weren't cars parked on Lewis Street, and they weren't all over the place.
is there, well, I guess what I'll do is I'll ask this if and when somebody from St. Joseph's comes up, or maybe they can answer that. Is there a parking problem as far as not having enough spaces on occasion, or?
I will ask Bob to address that when he comes up and speaks. Yep.
All right, and just a couple of other quick questions. Why are you not using a second exit for that parking lot? Because it seems as though there's a lot of traffic that's going to come down from the garage and then the 150 spaces in the parking area, proposed parking area, and it's all going to filter out through that one driveway.
Yeah, there's currently a rather wide curb cut on Lewis Street right here. And I think the fact that we're pulling pavement back away to create some green belt here, I think we wanted to continue that. You know, this curb cut right here is rather close to some of our neighbors here on Lewis. And we thought it would be a prudent thing maybe to take that and let that traffic come back to this location here.
All right, so as I understand it, it's your contention that that will be sufficient for,
It is, yes.
okay. And finally,
In another way, Mr. Robbins, if I may answer it, as I tried to describe on the levels, you know, clearly, anybody going into women's health at the lower level will want to use this lot, and certainly I would think the same for pediatrics. But they can get at it from the mid-level of the parking right here with this connection. And then with the upper level as internal medicine, they could get to it from the top of the deck or here. So it's that flexibility in where you choose to park that not everybody who's going to this building is going to park in that particular spot. I think that's unique to this application.
thank you. And finally, is there going to be any shielding on the roof for HVAC or anything, either shielding for noise and/or aesthetics?
Yes, I think you'll see here, I think there's a parapet, 6 feet in height, and it's centered on the building, centered in the location of the building. So this little raised parapet will be there to shield any HVAC equipment up on top of the building.
Do you anticipate that there'll be any increase in noise that might be impacting the neighbors as far as the HVAC equipment or the traffic?
I wouldn't think so, sir. You know, the equipment, the generators they're making today are much quieter than they were 30 years ago. Jamie is here, our architect. When I sit down and allow other people to speak, I'll consult with him, and if he wants me to say something different, I'll come back and address it upon rebuttal.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Peterson?
If a client of the building, a patient or whatever, wants to get there, if they see the address as 172 Kinsley Street, they may very well want to approach the building from Kinsley Street. Would that require them to drive through the parking garage, to exit the other side of the parking garage, to get to the new parking lot?
They could do that, sure.
But you can't directly go from Kinsley Street to this parking lot.
That's correct. You'd have to go through the garage.
If the building was represented to be on Lake Street, then people plug it into their GPS, they'll show up at the proper side of the property, proper side of the campus, and they wouldn't be faced with having to,
I think the building
through
will
the garage.
contain it. I think the building will have a 261 Lake Street address,
I think that would be
so
helpful.
that will help. And of course, as you know, once you've been to your doctor's office, there's a bit of familiarity there, so you'll kind of learn the rota. But I believe the building will be labeled as 261 Lake Street.
Good.
Mr. Chair. Staying with parking, it appears that people prefer surface parking over the garage parking. And the few times I've been there, it seems that the garage is way underutilized. Maybe I'm there at the wrong times, but, so anyway, so this, restructuring the surface parking is a great idea. Thing is, like Mr. Peterson was saying, people come from Kinsley will have to go down that ramp, and people really don't like going on the ramp.
Sure.
It probably doesn't feel good. Is there anything, any way you can improve that access down that ramp, make it more attractive, even the direction sometimes, maybe that might help? They can all look at that.
I noticed driving through it Tuesday, it was well-signed, but it probably needs to be amended if and when this building is built to show that MOB or medical office building parking here or there. I think what you're asking, is there any way internally we can help get people who come in off of Kinsley to that back lot? And I'd like to think with signage is probably the best way to do it, sure.
Right. So leaving parking, I know you're cutting off the driveway from Lewis, and I was just looking at the plan and thinking someone walking, for instance, from the neighborhood or to the neighborhood to get on site will have to walk down all the way to the Lake Street entrance, which is there now. Do you think you can make a pedestrian connection?
Sure.
Onto Lewis Street?
Yeah, we've actually got a wonderful center spine walkway right through the heart of this rather wide green belt, which might be the size of the width of this room, you know, at its widest point. So to be able to extend that, Steve, through the drive aisle and through this piece of parking to get onto this sidewalk would be a logical location for that because it's about midpoint on the perimeter of that parking lot. So we could certainly do that.
Mr. Weber?
Just adding to it, are you saying that you're gonna put a walkway, right there, a walkway with lines so that people driving through would understand?
Sure.
that would
Yeah.
be- And then you're gonna continue that to the sidewalk?
Yeah, we might lose a parking space or two in order to get that, that definition there, that protection there, so they're not crossing 40 feet of pavement, they're only crossing maybe a 22-foot drive aisle, so, and we would stripe that out, sure.
Okay. And that would, unfortunately, you'd lose parking, but it's not.
Maybe I can find a place to put them back, I don't know. Yeah.
Jim, just one question about the, we received this comment from the fire department about the,
Oh,
refers to the short driveway to the north, needs to be 20 feet wide and 45 feet long. I think that's, it says north of Dumbarton, so I think it's the top.
So Mr. Demers met with the fire department. We wanted to make sure they felt comfortable if they had to respond to this building, they could get in off of Lake Street. And once they got in, of course, the question they ask is how do they get out? And what we've done here in this location here is provided a nice hammerhead or a T turnaround, the ability for their largest apparatus to get in, back down, and leave. And what the memo in your packet says is this little piece right here, if you could just widen that a little bit and extend it a little bit, it would help them gain access to this east side of the building if they were to fight a fire, but also help them turn around. And so that's an easy, easy fix, Mr. Chairman.
That doesn't present any issues then for you,
No,
from your
not at
perspective?
all, no.
Okay, thank you. Other questions?
If you'd like, Mr. Chair, maybe Bob Demers can come up, just say a few words about the project. I think there was a question for him.
Yeah, that would be
And
great.
then I'd be happy to come back and answer any questions any of the others might have.
Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Bob Demers, Director of Operations at St. Joe's Hospital. And to answer your question, Dave, regarding the parking, the pediatric department, we have a building across at 155 Kinsey Street, right across from the medical office buildings that we currently have. That practice will be moving over into the new medical office building, so that'll free up some significant parking areas there so we can have some of our employees or some of the students at the academic center park in that area once the pediatric department moves over to the new medical office building. So that'll alleviate some of the, or open up, I should say, parking area for us in the new area.
May I ask, if that were to, more parking is always, or almost always, a good thing, and it is, Mr. Petropoulos knows us well, we always talk about parking. If that's the case, I would presume that at some point you're going to repurpose that building for something else, which will require parking.
Correct. We, right now, currently, the convent building, we allow New Hampshire Catholic Charities to occupy that space. We also have an employee food bank in the lower level, as well as a charitable durable medical equipment storage area where patients can come in if they need a walker or a wheelchair at no charge. We give it to them. The New Hampshire Catholic Charities will be vacating the site for about 1 year and 6 months until we can get the building up and everybody situated. They will then move into 155 Kinsey Street. Their traffic is very minimal. They have, I think, probably 7 designated spots out in front of the convent currently, and there's always open spaces for them, so that won't put any drain or draw on the parking at the 155 Kinsey Street site.
So what I'm hearing from both of you is that it's your feeling that there is sufficient parking for current and anticipated future use,
Correct.
based on what your plans are for the next foreseeable future.
Correct. Currently, in the foreseeable future, in our planning process, we always address the parking issue because, again, as you say, during peak times in the morning when everybody comes in for the lab work and everybody wants the premium parking right up by the hospital, and then eventually they start utilizing the new parking garage, or we call it the new parking garage, which is located between Lake Street and Kinsley Street. But keeping that in mind, we figured that once we move pediatrics over to the new medical office building, we'll be freeing up some significant parking across the street, and that can be utilized by either our employees or students that attend the academic center, so.
All right, thank you.
Question?
Engineer Graham?
So the director, now that you mentioned academic, so we're going to lose the farming class?
Gonna lose,
The farming class?
Dr. Bowler, our president, CEO, worked with, I think his name was Justin, part of United Way Agency, was a Grow Nashua, and they're putting a garden in there this year. But I don't know if they're gonna find some spot somewhere else along Lewis or Early Street later on, but at this point in time, we're allowing them to use the space this year, and we haven't talked about any future plans.
I'll be sad.
Other questions for Mr. Damaris?
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, if there's anyone in the audience wishing to speak in opposition or concern to the plan, please feel free to come forward and state your name and address for the record.
My name's Anne Marie White, and I own property at Early Street. I have two concerns. The parking right now across the street from our property, there's two vacant homes. One's been vacant for years, and it's kind of a parking lot where there's a whole bunch of people that park along the side and back of that house. And my second concern is it seems to be used for where they put all their snow. There's still a big mound there. So when St. Joseph's built the parking garage years ago, they didn't enhance our neighborhood. It's an eyesore now. So I'd like to see or hear that maybe, the parking's supposed to be improved because now they'll be parking on Kinsley Street, but, something was mentioned about the possibility of maybe taking those houses down and the possibility of maybe having some kind of like a small park or area where employees could have like some benches or picnic tables. Anything would be an improvement over what's there now. And I'm just concerned that, the last time they had a big project like this, they definitely didn't do anything for the neighborhood. We've been dealing with this eyesore ever since that parking lot's been built. And, so is anyone going to address whether or not they're planning on doing anything with Early Street and the whole backside of the hospital and, where the nursing home is? And, right now with the, you're saying that the pediatrics is moving, but, the nursing home creates a lot of traffic and a lot of parking up and down Early Street. And I would just like to hear that maybe something's going to be done on Early Street to, you've mentioned about doing something for the Lewis Street residents, and that you're going to be doing some landscaping as a buffer for those neighbors that face it, but what about people that want to take Woodward Street and cut into Early and go through that neighborhood? I'm concerned about the traffic flow and, my tenants that, are going to be dealing with the construction and the noise, and I'd just like to feel like there's going to be something done for the neighborhood as well.
Can you clarify, what you referred to two lots that you were describing as vacant? These are residential lots you're talking about, or lots that are part of the St. Joseph's Hospital property?
I believe, well, they're both St. Joseph's Hospital properties, but one is a large two-family home that is now vacant. The tenants, I was told, have moved into assisted living. The other home was a private family home that's been vacant for years, and that's the one that is just this total eyesore where all these people park their cars, and then right next to it is this huge mound of snow. So they dump their snow and all their stuff, and this is what my tenants look at every day, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Mark Hurley, 27 Lewis Street. We abut right along where the current curb cut is for the parking lot. Our concerns tend to be more that I'm in favor of them closing off that myself because it keeps people from flying out of the driveway and going through the neighborhood. We have 2 young kids, multiple kids in the neighborhood. My concern certainly is with traffic and how this is going to affect it if we're going to be open from hours of 8 to 8. Currently, there's a big rush in the morning and a big rush in the afternoon. Now we're going to have a constant flow of people coming in and out later in the evening. Having a nice buffer of trees is all well and good, but what about an option of having a fence put in of some sort that would block and give us some privacy from the now extra spots and utilization of the spots that they would have along that fence line or in essence around the whole property, but and also snow removal tends to be an issue for our folks on my street anyways. I know we've addressed it with the hospital. They've been gracious enough to accommodate us in most cases. But what is the plan for snow removal at this point? Right now, our fence line, which is where that curb cut is, tends to be where they pile up the snow. At the last meeting, they didn't really have an official plan as far as that goes, but that is certainly a concern. How often are they going to be plowing? Is going to be something that they're going to be doing it? Obviously, it's with an increased use, they're going to have to plow more. So that creates more noise. To your point earlier, increased traffic obviously is going to increase the noise for us in the neighborhood as well. So I'm just curious to see if there's any option to look into putting some sort of perimeter fence around the property to cut down on what we're going to see from, I mean, I assume it's going to be an improvement over what's there now, building-wise. But during the time of construction, through the course of that, through the course of the time that it's being used, just to give the neighbors on our side as well as the other side on Wasson and even to some degree to the folks on Early, a little bit more separation from the commercial aspect of the business side of it and our residential area.
Sir, when you said you had some trouble with snow and the hospital worked with you, was that because they were leaving snow near your property on their property? Or
No, it was more
Can you
the-
just explain that a little bit?
Sure, it was more the time of removal. At one point, it'd be 2 o'clock in the morning and we'd be hearing
Okay.
a truck moving next door.
So you spoke to them and they worked with you?
We did, we spoke to Bob and they were able to make some, after a couple phone calls to their contractor, they were able to make some accommodations for it.
Okay.
I have 2 young kids that obviously have to get up for school in the morning, and being woken up at 2 o'clock in the morning by
Sure.
snow removal is a bit of a problem for my family. As far as the traffic concerns, I'm all for it being routed out away from the neighborhoods. Currently, our street tends to be the cut-through from folks coming from Kinsley to get to the parking lot now. They don't utilize that little loop-de-loop of the parking garage. They come to the neighborhood, they leave through the neighborhood. I can only imagine that's going to increase if we have an increased time of use on the property itself.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to speak in opposition or concern? Okay. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of the plan? Okay. Sure.
So I took some notes regarding Mrs. White on Early Street. What I failed to present as part of the application is, you'll notice on our drawings, there are 2 houses on Early Street on the St. Joe's property. We've identified those houses as being raised. They will be torn down. They will not be occupied. It will become green space. She had mentioned snow. I don't know. I just chatted with Mr. DeBurs about that. You know, obviously, he's aware of it now, and we'll pay attention not to, I guess, concentrate snow in that location. But the objection I got from Mrs. White was about the homes and the condition of the homes. And they will be taken down, and obviously with no homes there, there'll be no parking there, so there's no intention. It'll be loamed and seeded. Mr. Hurley, he mentioned support of the curb cut, which was good to hear. The fencing, he's got a chain link fence that exists all along this property right now. I just mentioned to Bob Demers, and Bob will take that under advisement about maybe doing something more solid there in that location. He certainly wants to be a good neighbor. You know, the midnight snow plowing is a delicate one because of the Hurley-Hees proximity to the site, and it sounds like there's been some pretty good movement in that direction, and he'll have to continue to do so. But Mr. Demers said he would take doing something there solid under advisement along that wall for
So
a little
is that-
bit added privacy.
Is that the existing chain link fence, is that St. Joe's fence?
I don't know who owns the fence. It's on the property line. I'm assuming it's St. Joe's.
I would assume it's yours because it goes all the way from.
I'm sorry.
It is yours.
It's St. Joe's, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So that's all I had.
Mr. Robbins?
Thank you. Where will snow go when this is plowed?
So snow goes, as with all my clients, it goes where it can go until it can't go anymore, and then it really needs to be hauled away. And, you know, I could stand here and tell you that we're gonna do this, that, and the other thing, but every commercial property, every institutional property, city properties, everybody uses their site to the best of their ability, and then when they can't use it anymore, they haul it away. They come in with a front loader and dump trucks, and they get it out of there. I do think, you know, the site's unique. The site's got a ridge to it. It's half the site is up on Kinsley, the other half is back along Lake. And I think there's pretty good opportunities here to cast off smaller storms around this parking lot. But you're correct. You know, when snow builds up, when we have those winters like we had 2 years ago, they're going to need to manage that and haul snow away. You know.
In Mr. Hurley's situation, there is a St. Joseph property to the northwest of him.
Yes.
What is that?
Is that an accountant's office, the property?
It used to be a beauty salon.
Okay. It was formerly a neighborhood beauty salon that came up for sale, and St. Joseph purchased it. I'm not sure exactly how they use it right now. It's this lot right here. It's in between Mr. Hurley's property and then the parcels that are located up on Early Street. But St. Joe's does currently own that site right there.
Thank you.
Mr. Weber?
Currently is hospital parking on Early Street, their side of the hospital side, is that parking now for any of those buildings?
Well, it sounds like there has been some parking there for those 2 structures. I think with the structures down, that there's no impetus to park because the structures are gone. That's the educational building here. Generally, they park either along the street or they'll park in the structured parking garage there, or on Early Street, I guess.
Can you put on no parking on that side of the street?
I think that's an aldermanic action, actually. I don't think we can do it.
No, I mean, can you put your own signs on there?
Sure. If I may answer Mr. Weber's question, Bob would like to answer it.
Absolutely.
Bob Demers, St. Joe's. There is a lot of no parking on those streets
Sorry.
that surround the.
If you could just stand a little closer to the mic, because I don't know if it'll be.
There is, a lot of that neighborhood has no parking signs throughout already because of the, I guess, the students parking when years ago. The 2 houses, One house, a tenant recently has been admitted to an assisted living facility, but there's nobody parking in that. That was the tenants were the only people parking in that particular driveway. I'm aware that there's a couple cars, probably half a dozen or so, that park next to the Brown house, which we have some storage in. But, you know, we can work on that.
Thank you.
But those are, the two houses you just referenced, those are the houses being raised.
Yeah, we're gonna, as part of the project, we're not including this as part of the, but as part of the demo project, we're gonna have those two houses taken care of as well.
And that's gonna, Jimmy said that's gonna be long and seated, so that will eliminate.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
on the site plan, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Couple more questions for Mr. Petropoulos. Stormwater management, there is an area A, so that's the only one? The stormwater management area, there's an A that I can identify on the plan, but there isn't a B, there's just,
Yeah, there's, what's happening right now, this, as I mentioned a minute ago, this south part of the campus site currently drains into Lake Street, and there's a 24-inch drain line that comes in here that it connects to. And then a portion of the lower lot in the extreme southeast corner does go to Lewis Street. So what is very interesting about drainage, and I'm glad you asked, is being in the center of Nashville, believe it or not, this is the high point. This is the break right here where the Lewis Street drainage runs in a northeasterly direction and doesn't outlet until it gets to the Broad Street Parkway by the mill yard. Lake Street goes the other way and doesn't outlet until Hassel Brook. And while why is that important? Because if you can reduce flow at the top level, you're helping that whole system for its entire length. And by taking what is a contribution into the city system now out of the mix, completely for the 10-year storm, and then significant reductions beyond that, it is a very significant improvement and a very beneficial improvement to the city.
yeah. So I think you partially answered my question, because I saw the part where you said the drainage is divided into two areas, but then I saw one management area, which you called A.
Yeah.
And I didn't see a B. So I was wondering, so how are you managing that other flow? You're saying you removed it altogether.
Yeah, right. We remove it altogether, and we've got an overflow of our system, and I believe it kicks into the Lewis Street system. So we've got complete removal from the Lake Street system and then overflow into the Lewis Street system.
And we don't anticipate a downstream problem with capacity.
No, not at all. No.
Okay. So the detention pond that you're eliminating, that didn't have a pipe connection to the street?
The detention pond that exists, you'll see it was basically put in 2004 to service the surface of the structured parking garage. That's really what it surfaces. And so we're actually collecting that and treating it and recharging that as well.
So that never had an overflow pipe?
It did have a pipe. It had an overflow connection into the 24-inch line out into Lake Street.
Okay, because I was looking at a demolition plan, and I don't see that pipe.
Yeah, there's an outlet control structure to that basin that goes into the 24-inch line.
Oh, me. All right, I think it ends somewhere in the parking lot, so I'm looking at a demolition plan, so it probably wasn't that clear to me. I just want to look at the area that's existing as a garden, and it's not the education garden I was talking about earlier. It's
The oncology garden.
oncology garden, yeah. All right. So that's kind of going away.
It'll be relocated somewhere on campus. Mr. Dukran is talking about this area right here. Generally, campuses for hospitals and large medical facilities have an outdoor garden area for oncology patients. It's in that location right now. Unfortunately, it's being disturbed as part of the work. It'll either be reconstituted in that location or placed somewhere else on the campus.
And so the walk path that goes up there, and there's a rail proposed
Yeah.
Seems pretty steep. I mean, but I'm looking at a small plan, so.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, there's a
overlooks it.
couple brick walks in there and some landscape areas.
Okay. You might have mentioned it earlier. Is there an elevator in the parking deck in the garage?
Is there a what?
Elevator.
There's no elevator in the parking garage, no, in that garage. Oh, I apologize.
Because I was asking about connectivity between the lower building and, all right, so that takes care of that. All right, that's it. Thank you.
Other business? Mr. Peterson?
I'd just like to see clarification on where the two houses to be raised are. Mrs. White said that people park there now, and I'm wondering, why are they parking there if no one lives there at this time? And when the houses are removed, what's to prevent more people from wanting to park there or continue parking there?
Well, Mr.
Location.
Demers just said a minute ago, the cars that are there were for either former tenants, one of the buildings is vacant, or currently people who are living there now, and the person had just moved to an assisted facility. So Mr. Demers' testimony was the parking was associated with those two homes.
Okay, so
Take
once
away the
those
homes,
houses are gone, no one
Way
will
the
want
parking,
to park
correct,
there.
yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
Does Mrs. White, do you have an opinion on that?
Well, hold on, why don't we just finish up,
Well,
we go home for the applicant first, and then we'll give
Okay.
Mrs. White a chance.
Yeah, sure. Bob would like to address that if you may, if there's a question. If it's okay, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I'm sorry, what I meant to say was one of the houses, we had a tenant who just left. The two cars, or the cars that not driving, were the tenant's cars. The other house, which is what we're using for storage, I said there was about 5 or 6 cars that are only parked there. I'm aware that those are employees parking there,
Oh, employees.
okay? So they're not, they weren't tenants, but it's a flat level space where the garage was and the driveway to the house was, so the employees took it upon themselves to use that for parking.
So, once the houses are raised,
Yeah.
will the employees still want to park there?
They probably will, but what we're gonna do is we'll end up removing the driveways and so forth and probably put some curbs in, so access will be prohibited. And again, through policies or procedures, we can put an end to the parking there as well,
Thank you.
okay?
Other questions for the applicant? Ms. White, if you did want to just comment on the testimony you just heard in rebuttal from the applicant. Oh, sorry, yes, if you could just come up and give your name and address for the record again, please, and just make sure you have the microphone so we can get your testimony.
Anne Marie White, and I own 8 Early Street. He's correct that the larger or two-family on the right was never an issue. It was always 2 tenants living there with their own separate driveway. But the vacated home on the left, that's been vacant for over 20 years, and right in the middle of both of them is where the city or the hospital has been dumping all their snow and, you know, so they just, it's just become a huge eyesore. Not the property on the right that they're raising, but the one on the left and right in the middle. And the one on the left is where a bunch of cars, I would say it's more than 5 or 6, and they like park on the grass, and it's, I don't know if there's a driveway or not for them to get to. I don't know how they get to it, but all I know is between the vacant house and the cars that just park all around it and that where they dump, it just became quite an eyesore. So I'm happy to hear that will change and become green space. That'll make a huge improvement, so thank you for that.
Thank you. Mr. Hurley, did, anything? Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? Staff, have anything to add this time?
In terms of, for the conditional use permit or the site plan itself?
Sorry?
For the conditional use permit or the site plan itself?
Either one.
Okay, as if the board chooses to approve this project tonight, they will need to, you can remove condition 4.
From the site plan.
Yeah, from the site plan. And we want to amend condition 6 to read the comment from the fire department that was enclosed in your packet tonight.
So it's, and they don't need the clarification on the turning radius at this point? It's just
They have that. They've
They have
received
that,
that.
so it's just to refer to the comment from the 15th.
Right, that would be the short driveway to the north of the dumpster needs to be 20 feet wide and 45 feet long to provide NFR with a fire lane for access to the east side of the building. And that would be it.
Thank you. Jim, you didn't have anything else, did you? Are we all good? This concludes the hearing on this application. We will now take our deliberations into the public meeting. The board does reserve the right to recall any party for further clarification. Questions, concerns, comments? Mr. Rapucci?
Yeah, I thought it was reasonable concerns raised and well addressed. Seems like the things that were raised by people were already being considered by the applicant, and it was, I'm not surprised, because I think hospitals work with their neighbors pretty well, but it was nice to hear that they had some issues in the past and were able to kind of work that out, so it gives me confidence that whatever glitches come up, we'll be able to work them out. So I think it's all good. I'm a little curious as to why the hospital would take 2 buildable lots and just eliminate them. And I don't know, does that in any way prohibit development on those 2 lots later? If they turn into green space now, can they be built on 5 years from now if they're buildable lots? I don't know. And, I mean, I don't think it's something that our board maybe would want to look at unless somebody's looking at this like, if those lots are anything other than green space, it would affect the way they see this. I'm not looking at it that way, but if somebody were to look at it that way, then it might be something we want to address.
Sorry, you're referring to the 2 houses that are being raised?
Yeah.
I mean, because I think it's all, it's all the same lot.
Oh, so they're not separate lots, it's all the same property?
I mean, it certainly looks to me to be the case that it's part of
Okay, then
this
that-
lot.
that
It's
really
not-
explains
yeah,
that.
It's not a separate lot, yeah.
So I'm good.
But otherwise, yeah, I agree with you, and I felt like we got the comments from the abutters, addressed. I think it sounds like it's good that they're raising those 2 houses, and they're gonna close that off from parking, and then, with respect to Mr. Hurley, it sounds like they're working to address the snow removal, and they're gonna consider that, some additional buffering, so that's helpful. And also, I know Ms. White had commented about the parking garage not being all that attractive, but this, to me, does look like it's gonna be an improvement to the site generally, both in terms of the landscaping, and then I think the building is gonna look pretty nice, so I think that will be good as well. Other thoughts?
The only other thing that came up was the walkway, and again, if someone is of the mind that the walkway from Lewis Street in is a requirement, should we make it that way or just leave it to the discretion, which is fine with me? But if we want the walkway there, is that something we should make part of our approval, or just let it take its course?
I mean, I guess I probably would be inclined to leave it to, the testimony and see, what's appropriate. But I could be convinced otherwise if folks are, feel that's, important to make that a specific requirement. Mr. Robbins?
Which walkway are you talking about, located
It was comment about a cut through, right where, like, between Lewis and Street there, so that, right, so that people
Okay.
pedestrian traffic can get in there without going all the way down to the Lake Street entrance. I mean, I could actually see a downside to that. That may invite people to park on the side streets and walk there. But I just raised it in case it was a concern to somebody on the board and they wanted it part of this process, that I just wanted to remind everybody of it. I'm
Well,
fine with it. like it
Yeah,
is.
I've visited the site and been there many, many times, and it's rarely used. It's gonna be used more now, and there's really no parking available on Lewis Street at all, so I don't see this gonna be a problem at all. Whether they wanna do it or don't do it,
Yeah.
Yeah, the only issue I had with the plan was you have to go through the garage in order to get to the back lot, and that, to me, is,
If you're coming off Kinsley Street, yeah.
yeah.
yeah. But you can also
That could
come up.
create a real problem, because that garage is pretty narrow once you go underneath.
But you can go off of, there's other streets that are easily accessed. So, both on the east and west side of the hospital, there's streets that are accessible and easily two-way traffic to get down to Lake Street, very easy.
Yeah, and I think, to the extent that people come in through Kinsley Street and have to go through the garage and they say, oh, I don't want to have to do that again, the next time they come to the Lake Street entrance.
And the address is gonna be, not gonna be Kinsley Street.
Mr. Robbins?
Just a thought, maybe this is because I've done this in other locations myself. This prevents people from cutting through. And because of the one-way street, West Hollis, it is West Hollis there, isn't it? Yeah, Kinsley, I'm sorry. It might be to everyone's advantage at the moment to leave this the way it is, because it does not make it at all attractive for somebody to cut through and bang a Yui or what have you.
No, I agree.
Yes, anything to discourage people from using the neighborhood to get to the Lake Street entrance, I think is better. That's why I was asking to see if we can improve the use of the ramp on the garage, but I understand Mr. Kelly's concern about it being narrow, and to me, it's more of it's kind of disinviting. I've used it a couple of times, and I say, geez, who wants to drive that,
Well, we have the two separate applications before us. First, we have new business number 2, conditional use permit. Anyone like to propose a motion on that application?
Take a crack at it.
Mr. Rapucci?
You're gonna have to help me again, though. So we're starting here.
Yes, there's a motion. Oh, so, no, this, we need to approve the conditional use permit first. So just a motion to the effect of approving, because it does meet the requirements outlined. There's obviously some stipulations for this.
Okay. So, for the conditional use permit, St. Joseph's Hospital, conditional use permit to allow medical office building where a former church and convent building stand at 172 Kinsley Street. The actual location of the building is going to be 261 Lake Street. It's RA Urban Residence, RB Urban Residence, and residential and commercial surrounding uses. Make a motion that we approve the conditional use permit as it meets the requirements laid out in NRO 190-133F. And there were, does this have the stipulations
No,
on it
no
as the other one?
stipulations on this one.
So I can leave that just like it is?
That's right. So motion by Mr. Pucci to approve new business number 2, conditional use permit, finding that does meet the requirements outlined in NRO section 190-133F, and there are no stipulations. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Mr. Robbins. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Okay, so now the second motion will be for the site plan?
Correct.
Okay. And that is the same description as I just gave for the last one. And there are 3. Yep, we're gonna eliminate. Okay. So, there are three waivers requested. One, from the requirement to have a landscape island or median for every 10 parking spaces. This motion recommends that we approve that waiver. The second, to waive the survey requirements, as the impacted area is only a small portion of the entire property and well away from most property lines, and by testimony of the engineer, it was surveyed in 2004. So I include in this motion to grant that waiver. And the third waiver request is to allow medical office building with a flat roof versus a pitched roof. We had no opposition to that, and the explanation of the engineer made sense. I recommend that we approve that waiver as well, with the following stipulations. It meets the site plan NRO 190-146D with the following conditions listed, and there are 7 listed in the staff report. Recommendation number 4 was satisfied and is no longer required, and recommendation number 6 has been satisfied by a memo from the fire department dated May 15th.
Well, we want to say that that comment needs to be satisfied from the May 15th.
Oh, it needs, okay, I'm sorry about that. So the comment from the fire department on the May 15th memo needs to be satisfied to make this approved. And with that, I make a motion to approve this. Did I miss anything?
Nope, I think that's good. Motion by Mr. Pucci to approve new business number 3 site plan, finding that it does meet the requirements outlined in site plan NRO section 190-146D, with a total of 6 stipulations. The first 3 being waiver request, all reading is granted, will not be contrary to the spirit and intent of the regulation. Original stipulation 4 having been removed, and stipulation number 6 being amended to delete the reference to the description of the turning radius and instead require satisfaction of the comment from the fire department on May 15th. Is there a second to that motion? Second by Mr. Kelly. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Mr. Pucci, your motion making is a different format. Must be the zoning boards.
It is, so I gotta get used to it.
Format, right?
We'll get there.
Right.
Okay, and new business site plan number 4, that was postponed to the June 15th, 2017 meeting, and new business number 5, that is also postponed to the June 15th, 2017 meeting. So we are on to other business. Case number 1, item number 1, review of tentative agenda to determine proposals of regional impact. And as Roger mentioned, we do have a preliminary agenda for our June 1st meeting. I'm not seeing anything that looks like it would
We gotta keep it.
have
They're part of the zoning board.
regional impact implications, but if someone would like to take a quick look and make a motion?
I bet we had the same.
I make a motion that there's no regional impact
Motion by Mr. Pucci
on the
that, having reviewed the tentative agenda, there are no proposals of regional impact. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Kelly. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Discussion items, any discussion items? Mr. Weber?
I had asked Scott to email everyone. There is stuff from the OEP that I attended. It has a lot of information that, and if you haven't got it in the email, it's good to review for this meeting that's coming up. There was stuff on law changes that influence this board. You can read up on it, what it was about, for the meeting we're gonna have on Tuesday. There's a lot of other things that were there that are really good, and it's laid out for you. So, that was it.
And that's a good reminder of the fact that we do have the training on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday.
That's in room 208. Does everyone know where that is, I presume?
That's the room we've had it in before, right?
Yes, we've had it there before, so I think, Jerry, you know where it's at.
I do, it's right next to the.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's right next to our entrance, the back entrance to our office.
You come up the back way,
Yes.
go up the stairs right there,
right
that
there.
door, go
Right.
up the stairs.
Take a left,
Yep.
and then a right, and then the first left.
Yeah. Right, left, right. No.
Right.
We'll have it
Right there.
signposted.
There's signs there. There is signs, but you guys.
Mr. Chairman, if there's no other business, I'd like to make a motion to
Mr.
adjourn.
Kelly?
Could
Motion
I just
adjourned.
ask one, no one had any questions that you wanted me to give to Attorney Buckley, who's going to be there doing the presentation? If you do, let me know tonight, so I can forward those on to him, in case he needs to prepare in advance. So, that's it.
Is there gonna be anybody there but us?
Pardon?
Is it only our board that's there?
Just this board.
Okay.
Pretty exclusive.
Yes, we
Very
are.
exclusive, yes.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Mr. Kelly to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes, and we are adjourned at 8:27.